something to be aware of in these generic instructions as we go from about this part here down to this part. It's talking about a payload section, okay, and that's because these are generic instructions. This rocket does not have a payload section, so where we go from tying the shock cord onto an eyelet here, we will just tie it directly to the nose cone. When you go to choose paint colors here, keep in mind if you're going to use the stickers that come with it here, and this is actually one large self-stick vinyl decal here. You'll need to cut these out. But keep in mind what this looks like compared to what you're going to use for your base coat. And so the packaging here shows a black rocket, and that's going to blend with the decal as well, with green highlights there. I'm going to use something like this, not exactly, but I do want to have something where I can blend the decals into the rest of the rocket well. Now, something to be aware of on the nose cone. In general, it's a really nice smooth finish. There aren't any seams, but mine feels like maybe it was in a box with a lot of other stuff and got jostled around a lot. There's just a lot of little nicks and scratches on it. So I'm just going to sand the surface with some 320 grit sandpaper. I'm just going to go along the entire circumference of the nose cone here. And so that'll take down some of those little bumps and scratches, and then it'll also make it easier for the paint to adhere to the plastic. Okay. As I said, you may still have a little bit of imperfections left after this, but at this point those will be filled in with the primer. Okay, there is one little point right there where the mold came through. Okay, so you can give a little extra attention to that if you need to. There you go. Alright, so I'm going to take both of these and spray some primer on them. On the main rocket here, I have added some tissue just down inside here so that I don't accidentally get paint down inside and onto the recovery system. And then on this, I'm going to wrap a piece of paper around this and masking tape that on so I've got a handle. This is the rocket after 2 coats of primer. On the nose cone, I simply used a flat white primer on that, and it's had 2 coats. And for this, that's enough. I can go ahead and put the spray paint on this. On the body and fins, I used a fillable sandable primer. And the idea behind this is that it will fill in the little grooves of the spirals here in the body tube, as well as any grain that's still remaining in the fins. And there's a little bit, even though we did use some wood filler on that. And so you can sand this to remove the outermost stuff, and that leaves behind the primer in the low spots. So I will probably give this a light sanding and give it another coat or 2 of the primer before moving on to the paint. So here's the main rocket body, and this has had about 4 coats of gloss black paint applied to it. And the trick here is to do it in really light coats. So your first couple of coats shouldn't even be completely opaque yet. Okay, so just put a light misting coat on, wait about 5 minutes, put another coat on, wait about 5 minutes, and you just keep doing this until you build up to this nice glossy coat here. And I want to let this dry now for at least 24 hours before trying to put the decals on. I may also try and do a little bit of trim painting on this, maybe give a sparkle or a fog effect to it. The nose cone I did similarly. I'm painting it all green. Now, this didn't require as many coats. This only used 3 coats of green paint, and I may use the same color of green to do trim work on the body. But for now, both of these are going to dry for at least the next 24 hours. Here I have the nose cone all painted green. There's dust on it there. And so it's going to be ready to go. The rocket itself, here I did a base coat of black, and then I've used the same green that I used in the nose cone to have a kind of a feathering effect here. So it's got the full thickness of green where the nose cone will meet, and then that blends in a splattered pattern here down into the black of the rocket. And I think this will go well with the decals as well. So I'm going to let this dry for 24 hours at least, and after that's all done, we'll put the decals on it. Here I have my Xeno fully painted, and I've noticed though when I put the nose cone in, it's really kind of tight there. And part of that may be due to there's a little bit of splatter in here, and there's also just a little piece of the cardboard that got folded in. And I've got a little bit of paint here. I do this intentionally so that if the nose gets pushed up just a little bit, you still see color there. And so what we'll do here is first just do a little sanding here. I want to keep at least the color on the inside edge there. Okay, and then I'm just going to take the corner here. Just a little bit of sanding around the inside of the tube. There we go, that fits much better. Okay, so our next part is to add the decals. And as I mentioned, this is actually all one sheet of vinyl, so we need to cut these out. So first I'm just going to take my hobby knife and a ruler and cut these out. Now the white you see here is the backing paper, so there's no white edge to it. And basically it's meant to be 4 decals. If you look at this the way it is on here. Okay, so the 2 Xeno names there would go on the rocket there somewhere. And then they've got this wrap around here, up near the nose cone, and then the 3 triangles here. The way they have them spaced here with the triangles pointing up, you'd actually have to cut each one of these out by hand. I think I'm going to use it as a wrap, so I'm going to leave this part and this part intact and wrap that around. Now with my paint scheme here, as I kind of splatter fade into the black, some of these may look a little bit strange that way. And so another option might be to go ahead and cut the triangles out individually and maybe put them on the fins. Or if I cut them really close, I should be able to put them on here. I think if I do it as a wrap, that will break up the paint here. I'm going to go ahead and cut it out and see how it looks and then make a decision. Okay, so first of all, just cut out the Xenos here. Okay, now if we wrap this like so, okay, it does break up the paint, but there's enough of the mostly solid green here, I think we can get away with that. And then the two Xeno names here, I'm going to put those at thirds away from the launch lug, I think. Or I could put one. Yeah, I could actually do these 180 degrees apart, so I could stick one here between two fins and one over here, kind of right next to the launch lug and in line with the fin. Now, since these are vinyl decals, there is a little trick here that you can use that makes positioning them easier. So here I just have some water, and I put 2 drops of dishwashing detergent into it. Doesn't really matter what brand. But what we'll do here is run the decal through the water, and that provides a temporary lubricant so that you can reposition the decal, and it also delays the adhesion to it. Now you only want to do this on a well-painted rocket where the paint seals the cardboard surface completely. Okay, so we can either do this up, actually I'm going to do this upside down, I think. Kind of like that. Okay, so just dip the decal into the water. Get rid of the excess. You just want a thin film there. Okay, and I'm going to put this right out here. So I'm lining that up right with the edge of the body tube. And I can just hold that taut as I wrap around here. Okay, and that's almost right in line, but see, with the water on it, this lets me pull it back up and try again. Okay, and then once you like where you have it here, then just take a paper towel or a tissue or something and just squeegee around it here, and that will force the water out and the air bubbles. Now don't worry if this tries to stick up a little bit as the water evaporates, that will get better. Okay, so that's, I really like that effect actually with the upside down triangles there. Now for the other 2 decals, here I'm just going to peel it again. Here I was just about to compliment on how easy these come off. That's better. Okay, and once more I'm just going to soak that in the water briefly. And this one is going to be in line with this fin next to the launch lug. So I can line it up there, and then I can also use my launch lug as a guide. Okay, so I don't want to actually hit the launch lug. I want to bring it down just a little bit so it's not on the launch lug or the fillet. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and straighten that out, and then just squeegee it around. Okay, and you know something? I don't like it, which is another reason why you can do this, is I don't want to break up the splatter paint there, so instead I'm going to wrap this around. Okay, now I'm going to wrap it around straight. closer there. There we go. Alright, that blends a lot better. Okay, here again, I'm going to use a tissue, dry it off, squeegee it out. Get this top one again. Alright, and then that leaves me yet with the last one here. Okay, and with my current paint scheme, I really don't want to use it. I was thinking maybe I could stick it on a fin or something, but no, it's way too big. So I am just going to save this, and I'll use it for some other rocket sometime. One last thing you might want to do before we put this all together, or at least before you launch it, is go ahead and take the recovery system out here and note where the shock cord hits the lip there. Okay, and one of the drawbacks of Kevlar is that since it doesn't stretch and it doesn't break very easily, it can pull back if the ejection hits just wrong and zipper the airframe here. And so one way you can reduce the chances of that is just get yourself a piece of masking tape here. And I'm going to neaten up my edges on it. Doesn't take much. Okay, something about that sized. And what I'm going to do is attach this onto the shock cord about halfway down from the edge. Okay, and I'm just going to fold this over itself. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you want perfect, you can just take it off and do it again. Okay, so what I've done now is put a little bit of a bumper here, and this will help distribute the strain of the shock cord if it comes off at an angle and tries to cut into the edge. And you'll have to replace this every few launches, but it's just masking tape. Okay, so here's our completed LOC1 Xeno. And I hope you had as much fun building this one as I did. As I mentioned earlier, I really like this series of kits for the really robust way that they're built. And so I hope you have a good launch and a safe recovery, and please stay tuned for another one of my videos.